You call this a business? My sister Amanda sneered, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor of my small boutique. It's barely bigger than my walk-in closet. I continued arranging the handcrafted jewelry display, refusing to let her see how much her words stung. The morning sun filtered through the large front window, making the gemstones sparkle, each piece carefully selected, each design meticulously created in my workshop in the back. At least I have paying customers, I said quietly, straightening a necklace. How's your third failed startup doing? Amanda's perfectly painted lips tightened. That's different, Emma. I take risks. Think big. This. She gestured dismissively around my shop. This is just playing it safe. The bell above the door chimed and I looked up to see my parents walking in. Great. The whole family circus had arrived. Dad took one look around my 800-square-foot space and shook his head. The disappointment in his eyes was familiar. I'd seen it ever since I turned down the executive position at his company, Davidson Industries, to pursue my own dreams. Emma, he said, his voice carrying that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. Your mother and I are worried about you. You're 29, and this is all you have to show for yourself. I bit back a sharp reply. They had no idea. No clue about what I'd built behind the scenes while they were busy dismissing my little shop. We're having a family dinner tonight, Mom added, adjusting her Cartier bracelet. To celebrate some exciting news. Davidson Industries is about to close the biggest deal in its history. That's wonderful, I said, keeping my voice neutral. But I have inventory to do tonight. See? Amanda smirked. This is why you're being left behind. While Dad's about to sign a $100 million contract with Global Tech, you're counting beads in your tiny shop. I froze. Global Tech. They had no idea. This merger will change everything, Dad said proudly. Once we acquire Global Tech's manufacturing division, Davidson Industries will dominate the market. I smiled slightly, remembering the stack of documents sitting in my office safe. Not my shop office, my other office in the gleaming skyscraper downtown. You should really come to dinner, Emma, Mom pressed. Meet some real business people. Maybe they can mentor you, help you think bigger. The irony almost made me laugh. If they only knew that their precious merger, the deal they were so proud of, couldn't happen without my signature. Because while they were busy mocking my little shop, they had no idea that 5 years ago, I had quietly founded Phoenix Enterprises, now the parent company of Global Tech. I'm sorry, I said, not sorry at all. I have other commitments tonight. Dad's face darkened. There's that attitude again. This is why you'll never succeed in business, Emma. You don't understand the importance of connections, of being there when it matters. I watched them leave, Amanda throwing one last contemptuous look at my tiny store. The bell chimed again, its cheerful sound a stark contrast to the tension they left behind. Pulling out my phone, I dialed my assistant at Phoenix Enterprises. Sarah? Move up tomorrow's meeting with Davidson Industries to 9 a.m. And make sure the conference room camera is recording. I want to remember every expression when they realize who they've been dealing with. The next morning, I arrived early at Phoenix Enterprises headquarters, wearing my best power suit. My little shop would be fine without me for a few hours. After all, it was just a passion project, a creative outlet that had somehow become the family's favorite target for ridicule. As I sat in my top-floor office reviewing the merger documents one last time, I thought about how none of them had ever bothered to really look at my small business. If they had, they might have noticed that every piece of jewelry I sold was made with rare, ethically sourced gems that could only be acquired through very specific channels. Channels that, coincidentally, Global Tech had been trying to access for years. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Mitchell? The Davidson Industries team has arrived. I smiled, standing up and smoothing my jacket. Perfect timing. Let's give them a warm welcome. Sometimes the smallest shops hide the biggest secrets. And my family was about to learn that lesson the hard way. I watched through the one-way glass as my family entered the conference room. Dad looked confident as always, straightening his tie as he took his seat at the table. Amanda sat beside him, tapping away on her phone, probably updating her social media about being part of this historic deal. Mom chose to stand by the window, admiring the city view that ironically included my tiny shop several blocks below. The CEO of Phoenix Enterprises will be joining us shortly, Sarah announced, setting water glasses on the table. I noticed how Amanda's eyes lingered appreciatively on my assistant's designer suit, probably assuming Sarah was the CEO's secretary. I still don't understand why we need the parent company's approval, Dad grumbled. We've already negotiated everything with Global Tech's board. I smiled, checking my reflection one last time. 5 years of careful planning, of keeping my true business identity separate from my family's knowledge, had led to this moment. I'd built Phoenix Enterprises from the ground up, using the gemstone connections I'd developed through my jewelry business to create a technology and resources empire that now controlled several major corporations including Global Tech. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the conference room door. The reaction was immediate. Dad's pen clattered to the table. Amanda's phone slipped from her fingers. Mom turned from the window and nearly stumbled. Emma. Dad's voice cracked. What are you doing here? This is a private meeting. I walked calmly to the head of the table, placing my briefcase down with deliberate slowness. Actually, Dad, I'm right where I need to be. Sarah, please distribute the contracts. Amanda laughed nervously. Oh my God, Emma, did you get a job as an assistant here? You should have told us. Not quite, I said, sitting down and folding my hands on the table. I'm the CEO and founder of Phoenix Enterprises. Have been for 5 years now. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face had gone from confused to pale to slightly green. Mom had to sit down. That's impossible, Amanda sputtered. You run that little jewelry shop. Yes, I do, I agreed, enjoying their confusion. It's my passion project, but it's also how I discovered a very lucrative opportunity in the gemstone market. An opportunity that helped me build this company. I opened the contract in front of me. Now about this merger. There are some conditions we need to discuss. Conditions? Dad finally found his voice. What conditions? Well, for starters, Davidson Industries' current leadership structure needs significant changes. Your company's treatment of junior employees is concerning, and your resistance to innovative ideas has made you stagnant. Dad's face reddened. Now wait just a minute, Dash. No, Dad, you wait, I cut him off firmly. For years, you've dismissed my ideas, mocked my choices, and treated me like I was beneath you. You never once bothered to look closer at my tiny shop or ask about my other business ventures. You were so convinced I was a failure that you missed watching me become your boss. Amanda was still shaking her head in disbelief. But your shop, it's so small. Size isn't everything, Amanda. Something you might have learned if you'd spent more time building sustainable businesses instead of chasing quick profits. I pulled out another document from my briefcase. This is a complete restructuring plan for Davidson Industries. If you want this merger to happen, these changes are non-negotiable. Mom finally spoke up, her voice trembling. Darling, surely we can discuss this as a family. That's exactly what we're doing, I replied coolly. Isn't this what you wanted? For me to meet with real business people? Well, here I am. I watched as Dad skimmed through the restructuring document, his face growing darker with each page. This would mean stepping down as CEO. Yes, it would. The new CEO will be someone who values innovation and understands modern business practices. Someone who doesn't judge success by the size of a storefront. The room fell silent again, broken only by the soft sound of Amanda sniffling. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. You have until tomorrow morning to decide, I said, standing up. Either accept these terms or we'll find another company to acquire. One that shares our vision for the future. As I walked toward the door, Dad called out, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Emma, wait. We didn't know. I turned back, meeting his eyes. No, you didn't. And that's exactly the problem. The next 24 hours were interesting to say the least. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members. Some angry, some pleading, some trying to negotiate. I ignored them all, spending the evening in my tiny shop, working on a new jewelry design while the business empire I'd built quietly reshuffled the cards of power. Around midnight, I received an unexpected visitor. The bell chimed softly as Mom walked in, looking smaller somehow without her usual air of superiority. Your father's been up all night, she said quietly, running her finger along a display case. Reading through company reports, old project proposals, especially the ones you submitted years ago. I continued working on the emerald necklace in front of me. Find anything interesting? He found that sustainable energy proposal you submitted when you first graduated. The one he dismissed as impractical. Turns out global tech implemented something very similar last year. It made them millions. 200 million actually, I corrected, setting down my tools. I sold them the refined version of that same proposal through Phoenix Enterprises. Mom sank into one of the shop's vintage chairs. We really messed up, didn't we? You never saw me, I said simply. You were so busy looking down at this shop that you never bothered to look up and see what else I was building. The next morning, I arrived at Phoenix Enterprises to find my entire family waiting in the conference room. Dad looked like he hadn't slept. Amanda's designer outfit was slightly wrinkled and Mom's eyes were red. We accept your terms, Dad said as soon as I walked in, pushing the signed restructuring agreement across the table. I picked up the document, checking each signature carefully. All of them, including your resignation as CEO? He nodded stiffly. Yes. But I have one question. Why keep the shop? With all this? He gestured around at the gleaming office. Why bother with that small space? I smiled, thinking of the workshop where I still spent my happiest hours. Because that shop isn't about making money or proving anything. It's about creating something beautiful with my own hands. It's about passion, something you never understood about business. I understand now, he said quietly. Too late probably, but I understand. Over the next few months, Davidson Industries transformed under Phoenix Enterprises' leadership. I appointed a promising young executive as CEO, someone who'd worked her way up from the bottom and understood the value of innovation. Dad stayed on as an advisor, learning more about modern business practices than he had in 20 years of running things his way. Amanda surprisingly showed the most growth. She started spending time at my shop, not to criticize but to learn. I never realized how much work goes into each piece, she admitted one day watching me work. Or how much you have to understand about global supply chains, rare materials, market dynamics. Business lessons can come from unexpected places, I told her. Sometimes the smallest shop can teach you more than the biggest boardroom. 6 months after the merger, I hosted a family dinner. Not at some fancy restaurant but in my shop after hours. We sat among the displays, eating takeout and drinking wine from paper cups. I have something for each of you, I said, pulling out 3 small boxes. Inside each was a piece of jewelry I'd made myself. Cufflinks for Dad featuring the Davidson Industries logo reimagined. A delicate bracelet for Mom with stones from every country where Phoenix Enterprises operated. And for Amanda, a necklace designed to remind her that success comes in many sizes. These are amazing, Mom whispered, touching the stones gently. Each one tells a story. Yes, I agreed, looking around at my tiny shop that had started it all. They do. Dad cleared his throat. Emma, I owe you an apology. All those years I thought I was teaching you about business, but you were the one with the real lessons. I raised my paper cup. Here's to lessons learned. And to small shops with big secrets. As we sat there laughing and talking, I thought about success and how differently it can look from various angles. My family had finally learned to see beyond size and surface appearances, to understand that true business acumen isn't measured in square footage or corner offices.